Welcome to the PP. I am your host, Joseph, with co-host Jordan, and we have a very special guest today, Ryan Lazaroe, who is the head coach of the men's national blind soccer team for the Paralympics. I don't even know how else to say that. It's just a lot of words.
Definitely a lot of words, yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much who you are, what you do. I know you coach with a few other teams, but my first question, just to get started on the podcast, is how do you even become a coach of the national team?
Before COVID, I had the opportunity to interview with the U.S. Soccer Federation's extended national team. So within there, they have the beach national team, futsal, women's deaf, men's deaf team. So we have an extended national team. So I had an opportunity to interview right before COVID, unfortunately, right? COVID hit, everything fell apart, everything stopped, and nothing really came about it. So right around 2022, the U.S. was given the opportunity to start a blind soccer program at a national team level.
Well, history was made in the South Bay. The USA blind men's soccer team had its debut in Chula Vista in a game against Canada.
We watched Lazaroe score Team USA's very first goal.
And when the opportunity came out and, it was on the job boards, and I raised my hand, I said, I would love to take it. It's a great opportunity. It would be a great challenge for me, and to represent your country, to work with athletes with such amazing skill. It was a no-brainer for me.
How many other people were there to kind of raise their hand?
I'm going to be honest, I'm not really sure how many were in that kind of pool of coaches. I do know there were quite a few, but again, very fortunate to our CEO, our head coach, that gave me the opportunity. So got a call on a Sunday night and said, we'd love for you to be an assistant coach, and it was a no-brainer. I didn't talk to the wife, didn't tell it, I was just like, yep, I'm in. I was in line getting food, and that was probably the most exciting job acceptance I've ever had. It was awesome.
That had to be exciting to call her and be like, hey, so guess what I did?
That's pretty much how it went. I said, I was like, honey, I'm so sorry. I usually consult you with everything I do, but surprise, I took a new job. So, but no, look, my family, my wife's been supportive about it. So it's a good journey.
Dude, I'm sure a lot of people are like me. Like, I didn't even know we had a national blind soccer team until just like Joey told me about it. And I was like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah, since 2018, it's something we kind of saw in the future. I wasn't part of it, but they've worked very hard building identification camps throughout the country, getting with schools of the blind. And finally, I was a bit lucky. I came in right when they were like, hey, we're going to announce the first ever national team. You're now an assistant coach, and it was kind of a perfect timing for me. So, but I do want to give absolute props to all the coaches out there that started before me to get to the process of getting identification camps going, identifying players. They did a great job.
Are all the players like 100% blind, like totally blind, can't see a thing?
So in blind soccer, you have three different categories. So you have B1, which is totally blind, B2 and B3. So obviously B3, you can make out shapes with glasses. B2 is a little bit, your functional vision is a little bit more limited, and then you have B1. So in men's Paralympic football or soccer, you have to be B1. So it becomes very hard for us to also recruit. So, we'll get visually impaired athletes all around the U.S. Oh, we just found this out. We want to be a part of it. But then unfortunately, when they go to their ophthalmologist, they're not B1. So it's a little frustrating in terms of trying to find that next talent for us. But yeah, all of our players must be B1 category.
So I saw they had shades on, but I knew that was for protection, but I also thought it might have been to, if you weren't fully blind, it kind of helped.
So it is, yeah. So there's actually two things. So when we get to like international competition, international friendlies, World Grand Prix or Paralympics, so they have an eye patch that they have to put on and the eye shades. So it's also meant for maybe those one or two individuals who are trying to cheat. I remember seeing a female athlete that would play, and we were wondering, why is her head always up? Because she would dribble like this, but what she was doing is she would get her head up and kind of sneak some vision underneath the eye shade. So it is to make sure that everybody's on a fair level
Yeah, I
playing
guess
field.
you see Messi rolling up like Messi's blind.
Yeah.
Just trying to cheat, you know. You can
But you can, it's kind of, you can kind of tell. I hate to say it, because you'll see them kind of dribble with their head up and sneaking any opening in the eye shades.
I will say, marketing guys, if you're watching this episode,
Yeah.
that is a great idea.
That's got to be like
Yeah.
very, what's the word? Like coordinated with getting doctors and everybody sign up on like these guys to make sure they actually are, disabled. And so
Yeah. So when we go into our Paralympic events every 4 years and Olympic events, they do have to get classified. So it is very strict. It doesn't happen very often. It's very expensive for our organization to pay for. So everybody has to go through it. So there is a vetting / doctor visit for everybody through an ophthalmologist to make sure, yes, this person is 100% B1, and make sure everybody's on a level playing field.
Do you have any like scouts that like scout out like talent? Like, hey, we've been tracking this kid. He just lost his vision. Like we got him.
So
sign him.
we do. We do have certain sites. We call them ITG sites, innovative growth sites. So I think that we have one in LA, Chicago, Miami. We're trying to start one in Baton Rouge with Baton Rouge Soccer Club. I mean, so we do have a lot throughout the country. So we can scout through there. We have virtual scouting combines. So, for example, if you are a student for Colorado School of the Blind and Deaf, so they'll put something out and say, oh, the national team is putting together a virtual combine, and we'll send different exercises or things that we want to see with the ball, and they send that video back in, and then we will send back feedback or, hey, what's your classification? And then we'll bring them into a developmental national team camp, and that's their opportunity to kind of get into that pathway to be a full-time national team player.
So this might be a crazy question, but has there been any cases where they aren't fully blind? Because I'm almost thinking like, man, you just missed that I'm not blind enough, but I am definitely blind to not actually be able to play on the men's national team.
So we've had that. We had a veteran Army gentleman in the last virtual combine, and we watched him, and he swore he was B1, and we looked at the videos as a staff, and we're like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is the next Messi for us, right? I mean, he was so savvy and quality on the ball. But then as we did more research and he went to the doctor, quickly realized he's B2. So there are competitions internationally specifically for B2 and B3 players. So our future is to hopefully, number one, build a women's national team, but also build an opportunity for visually impaired athletes that are at the B2, B3 level. It's just a restriction from our world governing body going into the Paralympics that they have to be B1. So there's other countries with, if I'm not mistaken, I think Brazil has 11 different tier leagues just for blind soccer. Turkey has 10. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
It's insane.
Yeah, that's really cool though to think about like athletes. If like something happened to them and they lost their vision, to know that like they can still compete.
Yeah.
They have this. It's not over.
I keep trying not to make the joke, but if you're watching or listening to this and you are blind, and so you listen to a lot of podcasts, there's a chance.
Give us a call. We would love to hear from you.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
Why don't you do the jokes to me? All right?
So yeah, I mean it's hard. It's like you want to make the joke, but it's also like, man, they lost their eyesight,
Yeah.
So it's a weird. Which I'm sure if they're listening, I mean it's all just humor. But for real though, I mean, hey, there's a chance.
Absolutely. Well, like if anybody's visually impaired, and knowing that we do have a new national team out here in this country, we want to hear from you. We want to be able to bring you into developmental camps. We want to be able to help you grow as a player and hopefully one day represent the country at a major international event.
I was watching some videos, and some of those athletes can ball. Like they can play.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Some of these countries and the players they have, I mean, they do things that, and again, no disrespect to players I've worked with in the past, but there's some blind athletes who can just dribble around normal sighted people. I mean, they are very skilled, very good on the ball. It's amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I was thinking, the blind national team, and I see it, I'm like, dude, these dudes would like run circles around me.
Yeah,
Like,
they would.
they're
No,
legit.
Very good.
it's impressive. I actually wanted to go back to that question of how does it work? So you gave an explanation of how the national teams work, but how does the actual like sport work? So I know the size of the ball is different, and the ball itself is different. So what are some of the other things like that is different than regular soccer to make blind soccer work?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with hockey, right? So we have sideboards. We call them sideboards. So that kind of keeps the game flowing, keeps the players safe. So the field is about 40 by 20 meters, and the size of the goal is roughly a field hockey size goal. So it is 5 a side, so 4 field players and a goalkeeper. The interesting thing is the goalkeeper does not have to have any visual impairment. So the next national team goalkeeper could be you. Could
Wait,
be.
the goalkeeper can see?
Goalkeeper can
the
see.
goalie can see. Man, that's
Like absolutely
that's
zero
insane.
visual impairment. So again, if you are a goalkeeper and you would like to participate and have an opportunity, we're always looking. We are trying to grow our goalkeeper pool. But so yeah, in that 40 by 20
We'll
field,
say there's not as many goalkeepers out there.
yeah,
There's only one on a field.
that's true. That's
say-
true.
So I don't even know if we mentioned it, but the ball actually has a shaker in it.
Yep. So it's a size 3 ball. So if you've ever played futsal indoor, so it's a heavier ball, but it's got 5 rattles in it. So as that ball is moving, those rattles start making noise, and that helps with orientate the players where the ball is on the pitch.
and like you were mentioning before with goalkeepers, they have full visual sight. But the players on the field, it's obviously just sound. So when I was looking up more of it, they use a word called voy, I believe it was, if I'm pronouncing that correct. But they also use coaches as sight, right? So how exactly does that work with voy and then also
Yeah,
using-
so voy, spelled VOY, is Spanish for I am coming. So every time you are going to challenge for the ball, you need to say voy. So that alerts the players that, hey, be prepared. Use the right body mechanics to protect yourself. Somebody's coming in to challenge for the ball. It helps players not just orientate, where the ball is or where I am on the pitch, but where the opposition is. So voy is to help try to keep the game a bit safe as well. But then also, so like I said, the field is on, we have our sideboards on the side, but it's also split up in thirds. So there's a defensive third, middle third, final third. So each third has a different guide. So when the ball's in the defensive third, the goalkeeper is the guide. So that goalkeeper will be able to communicate and say, hey, this is where I need you to be. We're trying to build out of the back. Or defensively, I need you to step to the ball. You're first defender, second defender. But as that ball moves from defensive third to middle third, a new guide. So the middle guide coaches them when they're in the middle of the field. And then from there, as it progresses to the final third, which is my current job on the team, as that ball gets into the final third, my job is to guide them to goal. So I have to think very proactively where I have to read the defense and try to tell them, hey, dribble left, dribble right, or, we have we have different terms to help them out or guide them. So I'll yell 45. So that means come at a 45-degree angle. And so it can be challenging. As guides, we always have to think a step ahead and not just guide our players, but anticipate what.
And the guides are the coaches, correct?
Correct.
Is there like any problems with the opposing team's coaches like yelling out to your players, like giving them like false commands and stuff like that?
That is a penalty in the game. And
they
yes,
get fined
yes,
for that.
They can get in serious trouble for that. So that is a big no-no.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure they still do it though and try to slip it in.
I haven't seen it done at international level. I think everybody's very respectful of it. But for the players, right, it's just amazing when the sound localization and the cognitive overload that they have to take into the match. They got to know where the ball is. They got to know where their teammates are. They have to know where the opponent is, what guide is communicating with them. So now they know where they are in the field. So, I mean, just the amount of overload information coming in that they have to process, it's draining. It is draining for the
And that
players.
was like the next question was like the spatial awareness. I'm sure you guys do drills on getting them to understand the size of the field, how many steps it takes for them to get from one side to the other, or things like that.
So
or-
part of our warm up every single session, regardless of whatever field. I mean, we could be playing on the same field 1,000 times. We always do some sort of field orientation warm up. So not just dynamically where they're preparing their bodies for the session, making sure we maximize performance, we reduce the risk of injury, but also for them, they can mentally map the width of the pitch or the length of the pitch. So we may have them do 1 or 2 laps and they're feeling the sideboards, and they know, so they can mentally map like, okay, X amount of steps for this third, or X amount of steps for the width of the pitch as well. So that's we always start off every session with some sort of field orientation.
How often have you seen the players just disregard any of the help from the coaches that were there because of their spatial awareness
All the
and
time.
just take off?
All the time. It can get frustrating because, again, you were a player and you were a fighter, and just all the external things that you're trying to take in, and you may not be aware of what the coach or the guide is communicating, and they'll run into a sideboard, or they'll run into the goalie or run into the goal. And we do what we can to protect the players and be proactive with communication. And hey, if you're sprinting to the board, we'll let them know, board. And we try hard to make sure it's a safe environment, but there are accidents. I mean, there are situations where they do disregard and they get injured, and it can be pretty dangerous for the players at times.
Yeah, it's like it's tunnel vision, but they're blind. So like, what would you call that?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be terrifying to just I mean, all that information coming to you at once. There's a wall that literally could be just coming up at any given moment that you're trying to run around with a ball at your feet. And then there's somebody in front of you trying to actively try to take this ball while you have coach over here yelling at you, 45, 45.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's something new that, when we get new coaches coming in, or every now and then new players coming in I say new players, goalkeepers, we'll make them play with the shades on, so we can experience and continuously be reminded, like, hey, these are world-class athletes. And for them, like you said, you're taking all that in and you're visually impaired. It's a lot to take in. And like I said, there are accidents, but I will say this, out of all the national team camps and the games I've been with, it's predominantly been very safe for the players. We do a great job. Our athletic trainers, our coaching staff, the referees, our administrators that come in and help with the camp, we try to go above and beyond for them.
And we'll say that's huge. So like from my background of sports performance, and also a mix of soccer, I actually wore my
There you go.
Louisiana shirt today. But a lot of people like to look at, like the vertical, the 5-10-5, how fast you are. Because those, I mean, they're like the bench press. Those are exciting numbers. But what people don't see is the amount somebody has not been injured. It's very hard to track injury resilience. So you saying just, trying to be as aware as you possibly can for them to not get injured is, I would consider a huge deal.
Oh yeah.
Because like I said, many people like to look at, the flashy, the exciting things, but what truly matters is the not getting injured side of it.
And it's an interesting point, because we are a new national team. If you look at the numbers of youth soccer players in this country, it's millions, right? We barely even have 20 current B1 athletes to participate for the national team. So if one player gets injured, it's not like we have a pool of millions of visually impaired athletes. So we take our recovery, we take our injury prevention very, very serious, because we know that pool. Now, granted, we hope that pool turns into a large number, but that's huge for us. That's always on the back of our mind. The recovery aspect, making sure the players are fit for camps, the periodizational aspects, so we're tapering when we need to taper, things like that.
And you know what? I would say in the next few years, that pool will probably start to grow.
We hope by trying to build awareness, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking before, but if you're listening to this and you actually are blind, there is a chance.
Always.
Serious.
Absolutely.
Look it up, and reach out. You don't know until, you don't know if you don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know we were talking about the Paralympics a little bit earlier. I kind of wanted to get into that. Like,
Yeah.
what's that entail? You know?
So I mean, just like the Olympics and Paralympics, just like World Cup for soccer, it's every 4 years.
Oh, there's a blind World Cup.
So I guess you would say our quote unquote World Cup is the Paralympics.
Okay.
There are other tournaments, for example, the World Grand Prix or IPSA World Games. So IPSA is like FIFA. So FIFA is the world governing body for soccer. IPSA is our world governing body for blind sports worldwide. So we have the IPSA World Games, which was in England in August, last August. So there's a lot of different events. There's qualifiers. So as we get closer to the Paralympics, just like normal Olympics and Paralympics and normal World Cup, you got those qualifiers. So the unfortunate thing is only 8 teams participate in the Paralympics. We have close to 100, and hopefully as it's growing, over 100 nations worldwide playing blind soccer, and only 8 get to participate. So the qualification is,
Why is it only 8? What are they not?
yeah, it's a good question. I know IPSA is always trying to get more teams, and it's a bit unfortunate because we want to promote blind soccer. But yeah, it's frustrating because it just makes qualifying even harder.
Well, what is the qualification? It's like a tournament y'all go through to qualify,
So
or
we have world rankings. So, again, we have our CONCACAF region, which is North America, Central America. You have UEFA, which is in Europe, and the African section, the South American, Oceania for Asia. And yeah, so you base it on qualifiers for that, the amount of points you are able to accumulate through major events like World Grand Prix, IPSA. So, I mean, there's never ever a friendly match because you're always fighting for points, which are qualifying to help you get to the next Paralympics. So, like I said, it is very cutthroat when it comes to qualifying. I hope we get to grow in numbers in the next
Well,
couple
to be fair,
Paralympics.
it is a national team,
Yeah,
and the higher level in soccer that you get, the more cutthroat it gets.
absolutely. It's part of the job.
That's just the nature of it.
Absolutely.
There's always a number 2 ready to be a number 1.
Yep.
And even like the level of play, it's a lot of the drills are exactly the same. Like in
Mhm.
terms of like the regular sport, a lot of it's done the exact same way. The only difference is the level of play, how fast the play is, and the decision making. Like the decision is already made before the ball ever comes.
Absolutely.
When it comes to national teams, I know that's not related to blind soccer, but in terms of just a national team, it's always going to be cutthroat, whether it's a friendly or if it's a competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, that's what our players sometimes struggle with, even whether it be visually impaired or even sighted soccer. It, yeah, I hate to say it, it's life's not fair, and you get to that level, like you said, great, you got there. Now the hardest part is staying there because, like you said, there's somebody out there always wanting to take your spot.
well, that was a question I wanted to ask. So, like, I mean, I struggle with trying to make it to the bathroom in the middle of the night from my bed when it's like dark. How do you, as a coach of a blind athlete, like make that athlete better? It's not like teaching a regular play. I mean, how does that work?
So, what we do, like I said earlier in the interview, one of our biggest downfalls of a national team is our ability to get together all the time.
Yeah.
We're not a residential program. There are talks that hopefully sometime in the future that that's there, but when we only get together 4 or 5 times a year, it's a problem. So we give them what we call PDPs, player individual or player development plans, IDPs. Everybody has different terms for them. But we give them technical work. We give them strength and conditioning work. We give them sound localization work to do. And a lot of them has gone through, you know, blind school where they kind of teach them how to survive.
They need to be at
Being
like a
visually.
certain level before they even make it to you, huh?
What do you mean?
Like before, like the national team, they have to be at a certain level before they even are you
No,
considered this team.
I mean, we're such a new national team that we're so open on bringing in new talent. If you're new to the sport, we had a new player just recently went from sided soccer. Great, went on. I think he wound up getting a Division I soccer scholarship. Had an unfortunate accident and became 100% blind B1. And within months, he found out about us. And now I mean, went literally straight all within almost 6 to 8 months, went from sighted to now a major impact player for us for the national team.
So that was my next thing was, I mean, if seriously, I mean, if you're out there and you actually see this, because I know it's a very traumatizing thing to lose your eyesight. I mean, even now, if I were to like lose my eyesight, I feel like that's everything to me. It's like, what do I do? What is my next step? How am I going to make a living? What is, there's a lot of
Couldn't
questions
imagine.
that happen.
Couldn't imagine.
Whether you were born without your eyesight or you went through some experience and a traumatic experience, I mean, there is something like the national team. I mean, there's new things still coming out.
Absolutely.
And I mean that with the most sincerity that, if you're watching this, there is definitely a chance. I was joking, but still seriously, there is a chance.
Yeah. We're starting next month. We have our next virtual combine.
Really? What is that like?
So normally, we will kind of do an active promotion. I say promotion, promoting that this is what we're doing as an organization. And again, we'll reach out to certain schools or organizations or um, programs, nationwide, and we'll tell them this is what we're doing. They will send out here's the exercises we want to see. And as a staff, we get together every week during that virtual combine and we'll hammer home every single video and we give feedback on every single player. And if we identify a player saying, look, wow, there's something there. From there, we'll be in touch, making sure you're B1. And from there, it's, hey, we got a national team camp coming up. What are you doing? And again, just like any other national team, we take care of you. We pay your way. We fund you. You're taken care of when you get called up to these events. Food, lodging, airfare. So I mean, we go all out for our athletes.
Can an aspiring goalkeeper slash podcast host attend the combine
Oh, to send in the video. Absolutely.
as a goalkeeper?
Absolutely. We're looking for that as well. Right now, believe it or not, this sounds really crazy. I know when I grew up, representing your country it's like every athlete's dream, right? Oh, I want to play pro, I want to represent my country. And we have reached out to so many goalkeepers and they don't want to do it. Uh, whether because they might be scared of blind soccer or they're just unaware, whatever it might be. But right now, we have currently three goalkeepers. One, unfortunately, looks like he could be leaving due to work issues. Our goal is to grow our goalkeeper pool to 6, 10, 12 goalkeepers. So there is a virtual combine for goalkeepers as well. So we have specific videos that we want to see from potential goalkeepers. And again, the goalkeepers could be B2, they could be B3, or just like us, you do not have to have any visually
That's incredible.
impairment.
What do like athletes get paid?
So right now, we are not considered high performance. So we are a new national team. Uh, the Paris Summer Olympic Games are now ending, and the Paralympics are about to begin in Paris. So at the end of this year, our national team will take a very good transition to what we call high performance. So after every Olympics or that year, the USOPC, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, will now in January of '05 and say, okay, Paris was great. Now it's off to LA, right? We are hosting it, which is nice for us because we don't have to qualify. Like we are 100% in the next Paralympic Games, which is awesome. So in January of 2005, they all sit down and say, okay, what existing or new sports are going to be in LA, in Los Angeles? And then that's where we now turn into high performance. So in terms of payment, that may be out of my jurisdiction
it's-
here, but they are taken care of in terms of, their insurance is taken care of. Obviously, everything's taken care of with, if they need to be flown out to, let's say, Colorado Springs for injury prevention, we will fly you out for recovery. So in terms of pay to play, I'm not really sure, but I do know players get health insurance and, certain stipends for certain things, but that still might be out of my jurisdiction. So
If you're watching or listening to this right now, it is currently 2024, kind of around the beginning of August. So whether you're just watching this when it comes out, or we're prepping for the 2028 Olympics and you're just finding this, because I don't know how much really content there is on blind soccer.
In this country, not much. No.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yet. That's
Yet.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
but yeah, if you're watching this, that's kind of like the current date we're at right now. And I think in the history of blind soccer, this was started in 2022.
2024.
Oh, so this year is when we got.
Oh, for U.S.
Yeah.
2022, we started our national team.
Okay.
Yeah. So blind soccer became an official Paralympic sport in 2004 at the, I believe it was the Athens Olympic and Paralympic Games. So that's when it became official. Kind of a brief history. Spain is kind of the grandfather who, quote unquote, invented blind soccer. But just like sided soccer, Brazil quickly took over. They have won every Paralympic event since 2004. Hopefully that will change in 28 for us, but we'll see what happens.
We're gonna take them down.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
USA.
I
USA.
hope so.
Suck it, Brazil.
But they
That's not a joke.
they are a very good national team. So, but Brazil has dominated. Argentina just recently won the newest IPSA World Games, so they're kind of on top of the world right now. But it's kind of going back and forth recently between Brazil and Argentina. But it has grown. We have currently, I believe, over 100 countries. It's officially the fastest growing Paralympic sport in the world right now. So numbers are increasing for us as a country. We just started in 2022. So it is very new. So getting the word out there, letting visually impaired athletes, and not just them, but the public, more aware that, hey, we have a new national team.
Yeah, he didn't know until I mentioned it.
Yeah. So our job is to get fans, get awareness, get players, and get a crowd behind us ready for LA 2028.
Yeah, I mean,
Hot cheerleaders, that'll help. That'll bring in some crowds.
I will say inherently, I mean, it's fascinating just when you bring up the term blind soccer, because you're
Yeah.
like, how does that, my brain's not computing. How does that work? But I guess with that being said, with coaching the blind team versus any of the other teams, what has been some of like the biggest, what has been some of the biggest takeaways?
I think the biggest thing in terms of
This is also from a coaching
yeah,
perspective
yeah.
too.
So I think number one, just having a tremendous amount of respect for these athletes. And, I'm not going to lie, when, blind soccer was starting to come in this country, even I was like, man, how does this work? And getting to work with visually impaired athletes locally and now getting to work with national team players, it's been an absolute honor. The players are just so incredible. The organization, the coaches, our directors. But from a coaching standpoint, the communication is to me one of the most important aspects of coaching, right? So you were a player, and you go onto the training pitch and you have all these visual cues and visual things to stimulate you as a player, right? There's cones and colorful pennies and mannequins and coaching speed. It goes on, right? All these things. But you don't have that in blind soccer. So the ability to effectively communicate, have a clear message, and be able to create that game model and pass it on to your players is paramount.
I wonder, I didn't think there was much devil's advocate to play, but I wonder if it, in a way, makes some of the decision making a little bit easier. So in terms of like sight as I'm playing, I can get locked in on this ball and then just look straight down and just not be able to see another player around the field or be able to pass it anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so focused in on something. In the same sense, like being visually impaired, um, you're really having to trust in your coach that you listen to. You're really having to trust in the sounds of the other players and the spatial awareness. So I'm almost wondering if it, in a sense, cuts down some of the decision making that you have to do when playing on a regular field.
True. But at the same time, we also want to be able to have or give that player an opportunity to express themselves, which I know is kind of weird for somebody that may not know blind soccer. So, we have a striker right now that his spatial awareness is unbelievable. him knowing where athletes are and the moment he hears voy. So as a guide behind the goal, I'm looking at, okay, what the opposition's defense is doing, how they're defending. Is it man to man? Is it zonal? Is it, how are they shifting? Do they play with 1, 2, or 3 in the back? But we have a current striker that, I'll guide him a little bit, but he's just, his instincts take over and he'll just go out and do whatever he wants. And the crazy thing is he still scores without me giving, proper feedback. And, after every session, there's always a debrief, hey, how'd you do?
I can't shoot and I can see the goal.
This guy's cheating.
But, yeah, obviously our job is to guide, but we also want to be able to allow them to express themselves. If they feel like getting around the player on the left-hand shoulder of a defender, I'm not going to stop them. But I do want to make sure I give him the right communication as soon as possible and make it efficient and effective for him to get to goal.
And I thought I was going to end the episode with kind of, what is the number one takeaway from coaching? But I would actually really like to end it with just letting you say, if there's anybody out there wanting to play at a higher level and they're visually impaired or just gone through something.
Yeah. And you've already done a great job. And hopefully, right, this podcast brings in a lot of viewers, both sighted and visually impaired. But as you were saying, there's an opportunity, right? When athletes or anybody, right, unfortunately becomes impaired visually, right? So for example, we've had former military personnel that have suffered in Afghanistan from an IED. We actually had one at our first tryout. So, people serving the country and unfortunately getting injured in combat, or a disease that unfortunately takes their sight away, just to know there is a network, there is a support structure, there is a opportunity to continue to be active, and not just be active. Who doesn't want to represent their country and to play a game that you love? So I definitely, again, want to encourage and appreciate you as well. If you are interested and you are visually impaired, reach out to us. We want to help. We want to be able to give you the opportunity. And again, hopefully, right, with that being said, being able to be invited to a developmental camp and hopefully a national team and get that selection spot and represent our country at the Paralympics.
If you're watching or listening, I'll put some kind of link down below to kind of give you some more direction as to like where to go and point you that way.
And don't knock my hot cheerleader idea. We can get that,
I'll see what I can do to pass that on.
That'll bring a lot
Apparently
of viewers.
He's full of marketing ideas. The whole messy thing, he might cost a little bit, but
well, but here's the crazy thing: they can't cheer though. No one can talk during the game, so there's no cheering. So that might be difficult for cheerleaders. So
they just got to dance. It's for the viewers.
So yeah,
I'll handle that. I'll scout out some cheerleaders that didn't make the cut for like the Saint Stations or and
there you go.
Be like, hey, go represent your country.
I will say if you know any of the players that I would love to have them on the podcast.
Yeah, let me know and we'll get them on this.
Absolutely, I would love to know their story.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Give them even more time in the limelight, and just I'm all about that, especially helping in those kind of instances, because it's just a no-brainer. They're visually impaired. I'd love to do whatever I can to help.
Awesome.
It's the national team.
I know it's awesome. Like I said, we'll definitely stay in touch and get you in contact with any of the players that you want.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this episode, I know I have. I still have a ton of questions, so I'd love to ask. But if you would love to see more content like this, make sure to like it, share, subscribe, share with your friends, do all that fun stuff that everybody says to do. I don't know. I'm glad you enjoyed the video and you stuck around to this point.
Yeah. If we're gonna end it, I want you to take your best shot at Brazil. Tell them we're coming.
We will. Look, we're coming for the world. Our job is to medal in 2028. So Brazil, Argentina, Morocco, Turkey, we're ready. We're going to be ready for LA 2028.
You heard the man. You're going down.
Well, with that being said, thanks for watching.